She texted, "I'm staying at my ex's place tonight. If you're not insecure, you'll be fine with it." I replied, "Prove what you need to." Then I called her ex's wife and asked if she knew my fiance was sleeping over the three-way conference call she accidentally picked. Look, I'm not proud of how I handled this. Actually, scratch that. I'm absolutely proud of it. But I'm supposed to start these posts with some kind of faux humility, right? So, here's the deal point. 6 weeks ago, I, 36M, was engaged to Stephanie, 34F, my girlfriend of 2 years. Notice the past tense. We lived together in a decent apartment in Chicago, Illinois, relevant for legal reasons later. We split the bills evenly and generally had what I thought was a solid relationship. I'm an architect specializing in sustainable commercial buildings. She's a digital marketing director at a mid-sized agency. No kids, just a judgy cat named Maurice who has never fully accepted me as his rightful roommate. Stephanie and I met at a friend's housewarming party, bonded over our mutual hatred of IPAs, and have been relatively drama-free for most of our relationship. We got engaged on our second anniversary, planning to marry next summer at my parents' lake house in Wisconsin. Everything was fine, normal, even boring, until the text that I was away at a 3-day professional conference in Denver. Nothing exciting, just a bunch of architects discussing carbon-neutral building materials and debating whether Frank Gehry is a visionary or a menace. It was my second night away, and I was getting ready for bed when my phone buzzed at 11:37 p.m. with a message from Stephanie. "Hey, ran into Jason at Murphy's tonight. We got to talking, and it's getting late, so I'm just going to crash at his place instead of Ubering home. You need to prove you're not the insecure type by being okay with this. Love you." For context, Jason is Stephanie's ex from about 4 years ago. They dated for around 3 years before breaking up over lifestyle differences. His words. Her words. His inability to hold down a job while playing video games 30 hours a week. I'd met him exactly twice. Once at a mutual friend's birthday, where he spent the evening talking about cryptocurrency, and once when he randomly showed up at our favorite bar and Stephanie felt obligated to invite him to join us. Both times, he reminisced about inside jokes and a crazy weekend in Montreal while looking directly at me. What Stephanie conveniently left out was that Jason had been married for about a year to a woman named Claire. I only knew this because I'd seen their wedding photos on Instagram when a mutual friend had attended their destination wedding in Mexico.so. To recap, my fiancée was crashing at her ex-boyfriend's place, framing it as some kind of test of my security, seemingly ignoring the fact that he had a wife. I stared at my phone for a solid 5 minutes. My first instinct was to call her immediately and demand to know what she was thinking. My second instinct was to book the next flight back to Chicago. Then, a strange calm washed over me. The kind of calm that only comes when you suddenly realize exactly who you're dealing with. I typed back, "Prove what you need to. We'll talk when I'm home tomorrow." Then I did something I'm not particularly proud of, but will never regret. I looked up Jason on social media, found his wife, Claire's profile, and from there got her phone number listed on her business page. She's a real estate agent with a prominently displayed, "Call me anytime" business cell. Being in Colorado, a one-party consent state for call recordings, I wasn't concerned about legal issues with the call. "Hello?" she answered. I later learned she always picked up unknown numbers, even late, because new client calls were how she built her business. "Hi. Is this Claire, Jason's wife?" "Yes." Suspicion in her voice. "You don't know me, but my name is Alex. I'm engaged to Stephanie Weber. I believe you might know her as Jason's ex-girlfriend." A pause. "Oh yes, I know who Stephanie is. I'm really sorry to be bothered this late, but I thought you should know Stephanie just texted me saying she plans to spend the night at your house with Jason. I wanted to check if you were aware of this." The silence on the other end was deafening. "Claire, are you still there?" "I'm here," she said, voice tight. "And no, I wasn't aware of that, considering I'm currently visiting my sister in Iowa. Jason told me he was having a guy's night watching the game." "I see. Again, I'm really sorry to be the one to tell you. Don't apologize," she cut me off. "I appreciate the call. Hold for a moment. I'll add Jason so we can sort this out." "Not all." I could hear muffled movements and then Claire's voice slightly distant from the phone. "Hey Siri, call husband." What happened next was better than anything I could have orchestrated. Claire, using her iPhone's three-way calling feature, merged the calls, bringing all three of us into a single conversation. "Just so you know, Alex, I'm adding Jason to this call now," Claire said, making it clear this was now a conference call. "Babe?" Jason answered cheerfully, music and chatter in the background. "What's up? Thought you were having wine night with your sister." "I am. Quick question. Is Stephanie Weber at our apartment right now?" Jason fell silent for a moment. I could practically hear him calculating his options. "What? No. Why would she be here? I'm at Tommy's watching the Bulls game." His voice had a nervous edge that hadn't been there when he first answered. At this point, I decided to chime in. "Hi, Jason. It's Alex, Stephanie's fiance. She texted me about 20 minutes ago, saying she's crashing at your place tonight, just so you know." The background noise on Jason's end suddenly got quieter, as if he'd moved somewhere more private. "What the _, sir? Who is this?" Jason's voice dropped to an urgent whisper. "It's Alex. We've met twice. You told me about your Ethereum portfolio both times. And it's Claire, your wife," she added helpfully, "currently on speaker with Alex, who called to see if I was okay with your ex-girlfriend spending the night at our apartment." "This is some kind of misunderstanding," Jason sputtered. "I ran into Steph at Murphy's. We had like one drink, and she left. I'm at Tommy's with the guys." "Interesting," I said, "because according to her text, she's planning to sleep at your place tonight." "Let me guess," Claire interjected, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Tommy suddenly got a cat named Whiskers that she's allergic to, so they had to relocate the guys' night to our apartment. And all the guys mysteriously disappeared except for you and Stephanie." A long pause from Jason's end, followed by a defeated sigh. "Claire, it's not what you think." "Save it," she snapped. "Is she there with you right now?" Another pause. "Yes." "Put her on the phone." Some muffled conversation, and then Stephanie's voice came through, confused. "Hello? Hi, Steph, it's Alex. I'm on a call with you, Jason, and his wife, Claire. I was just letting Claire know about your sleeping arrangements for tonight." And oddly enough, it seemed she wasn't consulted about this house guest situation. Stephanie's voice was a mixture of shock and anger. "Are you seriously calling to check up on me? This is exactly the kind of insecurity I was talking about." "Actually," Claire cut in, "he was calling to see if I was aware that my husband's ex-girlfriend was spending the night at our apartment while I'm out of town," which I wasn't. "So, thank you, Alex, for your consideration." Stephanie's voice rose an octave. "Jason told me you were fine with this. He said you guys have an understanding about staying friends with exes. Our understanding does not extend to sleepovers, Stephanie." At this point, the call devolved into chaos. Jason tried to explain to Claire that it was innocent. Stephanie alternated between yelling at me for checking up on her and apologizing to Claire. Claire was mostly silent, aside from the occasional scoff or unbelievable. I stayed on the line out of morbid curiosity until Claire finally said, "Jason, I'm getting on a flight back tomorrow morning. Have your stuff packed." Then she hung up. Stephanie called me back immediately. "I can't believe you did that," she hissed. "You had no right to interfere in my friendship with Jason." "Friendship?" I echoed. "Is that what we're calling it?" Nothing was going to happen. She just had too many drinks to drive and didn't want to pay for an Uber. There are these amazing inventions called female friends, hotels, or even calling your fiance before executing a plan. But instead, you framed it as a test of my insecurity because you knew I'd react like this. You've always been weird about Jason. Stephanie, his wife, didn't know you were staying over. Doesn't that register as a red flag? She didn't have a good answer. After more back and forth that went nowhere, she hung up. I tried to focus on my conference the next morning, but it was hard to think about renewable building materials when my relationship was imploding in real time. My phone kept buzzing with increasingly desperate texts from Stephanie. 10:14 a.m. "I'm so sorry. You're right. It was inappropriate. Please call me back. I'm at home now. Jason and I really are just friends. Nothing has ever happened. Claire is overreacting. She's always been jealous of me. I made a mistake, but you crossed a line calling her. Are you really throwing away our relationship over one bad judgment call?" I didn't respond. After lunch, I skipped the remaining day and a half of the conference and booked an earlier flight back to Chicago. I called my brother, explained the situation, and asked if I could crash at his place. He agreed immediately, adding, "I never liked your cat anyway." When I landed, I had a voicemail from Claire, of all people. "Hey, Alex, it's Claire, Jason's soon-to-be ex-wife. I just wanted to say thank you for the call yesterday. It's not fine, obviously, but I'm glad I know." Anyway, when I got home, I found some of Stephanie's things in our apartment. A single earring on a nightstand and her toiletry bag in the bathroom. Take that for what it's worth that I picked up my car from long-term parking, drove to my brother's place, and finally replied to Stephanie with a single text. "I'll be by tomorrow at 2 p.m. to pick up my things." Stephanie called repeatedly while I packed, ignoring my request to be out of the apartment. Maurice the cat watched judgmentally as she alternated between apologies, explanations, and accusations. "It's not what you think. Nothing happened. You're insecure. I made a mistake." I packed methodically, staying mostly silent, which frustrated her more than anything I could have said. When I tried to leave, she blocked the door. "You can't throw away 2 years over one misunderstanding. I love you." I looked her in the eye. "You texted me your plan to stay at another man's house, framed it as a test of my insecurity, and didn't mention his wife. What am I misunderstanding?" She had no answer. I left my key, scratched Maurice behind the ears, and walked out. The aftermath was predictable. Friends taking sides, awkward family explanations, Stephanie spinning various narratives about me being controlling and insecure. 2 weeks later, my friend Mike revealed Stephanie and Jason had been meeting regularly at Murphy's for over a month, hidden in a back booth. Red flags I hadn't wanted to see. 3 months later, I had mostly moved on. New apartment, work, casual dates. Breaking the lease cost $3,600, but my mental health was worth it. Then came an email from Claire Johnson, Jason's soon-to-be ex-wife, with screenshots of texts between Stephanie and Jason from 5 months prior, showing the affair had been going on long before the night in question. Part of me was devastated, part relieved. I hadn't overreacted. I emailed her a simple thank you. 2 days later, Claire invited me for coffee. No romantic intentions, just shared experiences. What was supposed to be a quick coffee turned into a 3-hour conversation, filled with laughter and honesty. We didn't exchange numbers, but months later, I kept running into her at bookstores and farmers markets. To be why the third coincidence. We admitted we'd been frequenting the same spots, hoping to bump into each other, and finally exchange numbers. We've been dating for 2 months, more like cautious coffee meetings at first, with both of us still healing and wary of trauma bonding. But there's something powerful about being with someone who's seen exactly how you can be hurt and chooses to be careful with you anyway. Last week, Stephanie texted, "Heard you're dating Claire now. Isn't that a little pathetic?" I showed Claire, and she suggested a response. "Actually, we bonded over our mutual excellent taste and poor judgment. But we're working on the judgment part. Hope you and Jason are happy together." Stephanie immediately replied, "We're not together. He's dating some 22-year-old yoga instructor." Claire and I didn't respond. We ordered takeout, open wine, and toasted to the strange ways life leads you exactly where you need to be, even if the route is painful. Maurice the cat still hates me. He's with Stephanie, microchipped in her name, and honestly, they deserve each other. TLDR. Fiance said she was spending the night at her ex's place to test if I was insecure. I called the ex's wife. Chaos ensued. Relationships imploded, and it turned out my fiancé had been having an affair for months. Claire, the wife, and I are now cautiously dating. Karma works in mysterious ways. Yes, Maurice is still with Stephanie. The wedding deposits were minimal. The ring was my grandmother's, and breaking the lease was the biggest cost.